In the dust-swept lands of ancient Mesopotamia, where civilization first bloomed between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, a story was etched into clay. A story that would outlive empires, a tale of gods, monsters, friendship, and the bitter struggle against mortality itself. This is the Epic of Gilgamesh. Our journey begins not with a king, but with the very medium that preserved his legend. Imagine scribes pressing reed styluses into wet clay, their hands shaping the cuneiform script that would carry this myth through millennia. These tablets, thousands of them, were gathered in the great library of Ashurbanipal in Nineveh. It was here, among countless records of history and science, that the world's first great work of literature was saved from the sands of time. From these ancient fragments, a figure emerges larger than life: Gilgamesh, king of Uruk, the city of great walls. Two-thirds god, one-third man, he was built to perfection, beautiful, powerful, and utterly terrifying. He strode through his city, not as a shepherd to his flock, but as a wild bull, his arrogance unchecked. He took what he wanted, from the sons of his nobles for his army to the brides on their wedding nights. His people, burdened by his tyranny, cried out to the heavens. They prayed to Anu, the god of the sky, for a savior, for someone who could match the king's might and temper his savage heart. The gods heard their pleas. Aurora, the goddess of creation, was tasked with crafting a counterpart to Gilgamesh. She washed her hands, pinched off a piece of clay, and cast it into the wilderness. From this earth, a new being was born. He was Enkidu, the wild man. His body was covered in matted hair, his locks long like a woman's. He knew nothing of cities or people. He ran with the gazelles, drank from the waterholes with the wild beasts, and lived as one with nature. He was innocence and raw power, the very antithesis of the sophisticated and tyrannical Gilgamesh. Enkidu's existence was soon discovered. A trapper, his pits filled in, and his snares broken by this wild man, grew fearful. He went to Uruk and told King Gilgamesh of the powerful being who roamed the steppe, protecting the animals. Gilgamesh, ever the strategist, saw not a threat, but an opportunity. He devised a plan to tame this wild man, to bring him into the world of civilization. He sent for Shamhat, a temple courtesan, a woman whose grace and wisdom represented the arts of city life. Shamhat traveled to the wilderness and waited by the watering hole. When Enkidu appeared with his herd, he was captivated. He had never seen a human being before. For 6 days and 7 nights, they were together, and Shamhat taught him the ways of humanity. She spoke to him of Uruk, of music, of bread and beer, and of the mighty King Gilgamesh. When Enkidu tried to return to his animal friends, they no longer recognized him. They fled from his scent, the scent of man. He had lost his place in the wild. He had gained a new consciousness, a longing for companionship. Shamhat looked at him and said, "You are wise, Enkidu. You have become like a god. Why do you roam the wilderness with beasts? Come, I will lead you to Uruk, to the brilliant king, Gilgamesh." Enkidu's heart stirred with a new purpose. He had heard of Gilgamesh's tyranny, of his abuse of power. A righteous anger grew within him. He declared, "I will go to Uruk. I will challenge him. I will shout to his face, I am the strongest." And so, Enkidu, the wild man now dressed in the clothes of a civilized man, eating bread and drinking beer for the first time, set out for the great walled city. His arrival in Uruk caused a sensation. The people marveled at his stature and his untamed strength, seeing in him a perfect match for their king. They crowded around him, recognizing him as the one destined to stand against Gilgamesh. The stage was set for a monumental clash. The moment of confrontation arrived during a public feast. Gilgamesh, in his arrogance, was on his way to claim a bride from her wedding chamber, asserting his royal privilege. But at the doorway, his path was blocked. There stood Enkidu, a mountain of a man, his feet planted firmly, denying the king entry. For the first time, Gilgamesh was challenged. His authority was questioned. Rage filled the king's eyes. He lunged at Enkidu, and the two titans collided in the city square. They grappled like mighty bulls, the ground shaking beneath their feet. They crashed against walls, their strength evenly matched. The people of Uruk watched in awe as the force of nature, Enkidu, met the force of civilization, Gilgamesh. Neither could gain the upper hand. They wrestled until exhaustion began to set in. Finally, with a tremendous effort, Gilgamesh managed to throw Enkidu to the ground. He had won. But as he stood over his defeated rival, something shifted. His anger subsided. Looking at Enkidu, he saw not an enemy, but an equal. He saw a mirror of his own strength, his own spirit. He saw a brother. And Enkidu, lying on the ground, looked up at Gilgamesh. His own rage had vanished, replaced by a profound respect. In that moment, the fight was forgotten. Gilgamesh helped Enkidu to his feet. They embraced, sealing their bond not in blood, but in sweat and mutual admiration. The people of Uruk cheered, for they knew their prayers had been answered in a way they never expected. They had not found a challenger to destroy their king, but a companion to complete him. The loneliness that had plagued both the wild man and the tyrannical king was gone. Gilgamesh, who had no equal, now had a friend. Enkidu, who had lost his home in the wild, now had a brother. This was not the end of a conflict, but the beginning of the greatest friendship the world had ever known. Together, they would turn their gaze outward, away from the walls of Uruk and toward the horizon, seeking glory and adventure. Their next journey would take them to the legendary cedar forest to face a terrifying guardian named Humbaba, but that is a story for another time. The epic of their friendship, a bond that would challenge monsters and defy the gods themselves, had just begun. And through it, Gilgamesh, the arrogant king, would start on a path that would lead him to confront the ultimate human question, the meaning of life in the face of death. Thank you for joining us on this journey back to the dawn of storytelling. The Epic of Gilgamesh reminds us that the themes of friendship, loss, and the search for meaning are as ancient as civilization itself. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more myths and legends from our world's incredible history.